Hey, people, we are back. Final mock draft Monday. It's here. It's like, feels like forever until it gets here. And then it's like right at the doorstep. But Kev, do you have any draft week traditions or anything that you do getting ready for?
Too crazy. Really, it's just kind of like locking in the whole weekend, clearing the schedule. I go for a walk in the morning and that's about it. Otherwise, I'm inside, just
Nice.
locked in the whole weekend. No plans ever.
Nice, nice. I always, my wife and I always watch draft day, even though it's like the worst. It's just like become a tradition. And I look forward to it so much because like when I'm watching it, that means it's here. You know what I mean? That's the kind of the milestone that we've made it where we need to go. So we're back. We're going to be doing an alternating mock draft today. That's what you're tuned in here for, people. Also, we're going to be posting on our socials this week our final depth 7 round mock draft. We actually already kind of did it. Kevin got a sneak peek on what we're doing there with all the cool graphics and everything like that. We'll have that posted on the website, and follow our socials to keep abreast of that. But this is the fun one. This is the collaborative one. We're going to go back and forth. Kev's gonna start this time because I started last time with the Raiders, and as you can see, we're sharing the screen here. We're gonna have the draft on the right hand side. A little bit of a twist, Kevin. We're using the depth big board. I was up to like 1 a.m. on Saturday, like customizing it. So we're gonna have the depth big board up on that right hand side for that portion, and then I'm gonna be navigating on that left hand side for the team depth charts so you guys can have a good look. It's a really good, useful tool for these kinds of exercises. So, with that being said, we're gonna get started here.
Well, with the Raiders, this one's the slam dunk. It's been this way ever since December or so, when January, I guess, officially when they got the first pick. So, without further ado, yeah, just Fernando Mendoza, easy peasy,
Easy
lock it in.
peasy, number 13 on the big board, but number one in our hearts here for the Raiders. All right, so we got that. We'll move on to the Jets now. Okay, so kind of weird with the Jets, like they canceled the David Bailey meeting and people panicked, Kev. But I think it's actually the opposite of what people are thinking. I think they're so comfortable with it that like the hay's kind of in the barn, and I Spielman's there, right? He's still over there as an advisor.
Yeah, he was advising. Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, and I know he's close with Pete Prisco, and I was watching the. I like to see what Pete says about it because of their relationship, and Pete had David Bailey in their last one for CBS, so that made me feel a lot better with that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go David Bailey. He's going to slot into that weak side edge role, and hopefully with that carnage off the edge, they'll be able to get an interception this year. I think that's the benchmark. Just get one interception, and we're going to be cooking with grease. All right, Arizona, Kev.
All right, so Arizona's interesting. I know a lot of people have had Maui Noga there, and it makes a lot of sense. He's Philip, massive need. I know he's got the medical recheck, which we don't have the information, as far as like what's that actually entailing, but what it looks like. But so that's an option. I just think the best player on the board, I think, pretty universally is going to be Jeremiah Love. The question is, do you take the running back there at 3, or do you take a more premium position? So you kind of go back and forth. I'm just going to go ahead and guess. I've seen people say both sides of the argument. I'm going to go ahead and just say Jeremiah Love. He's the best player in the
Wow.
draft, and it's hard to argue with it. Obviously, you can argue with the positional value. You can't really argue with the player, but they don't have a quarterback yet. Maybe they get that later on. With someone like Ty Simpson, who's been rumored there a lot. But I feel like getting the best player in the draft's not really a bad thing, really, in any set of circumstances. So I'll go with Jeremiah Love. I don't feel great about it as far as like what I think is going to actually happen. It's a toss up, but I'll go with Love for this exercise.
That's like you, like, just inhaling the draft week smoke.
I
Just
know, I
inhaling it in
know.
droves. I always have a rule of thumb, like, once the Friday before the draft starts, right, I shut it all off. Like, everything I now you're hearing the Jordan Tyson had dinner with Joe Shane for 37 hours and all this stuff, and I was shutting it off, you know? But the biggest person, the most pissed off person that happens is James Conner. Look at the depth chart. They signed Tyler Algier, and they have Trey Benson, right? Who's like an ascending player, and then they have James Conner for 1 more year. So if he becomes the fourth player there, he's gonna be pissed. I know he's getting older, but
And I will say too, like I think in a perfect world, like maybe somebody moves up to 3. I think the Cardinals would like do backflips so they can get out of 3. Maybe it happens. I know there's like some of the smoke and the rumors about the Chiefs, and people talk about the Cowboys and stuff like that. Who knows? But like in a perfect world, I think the Chiefs are or the Cardinals are not picking 3 next Thursday. But yeah, for this exercise, we can't do trades. But I'll go with love for now, but don't feel great about it.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, if you are buying into the smoke, it sounds like the Chiefs are really interested in maybe moving up to that 3 spot, and then if they can move down to 9 and still get a Maui Noa, I think that's the best type of thing for them, right? That makes the most sense. They could recoup a lot of that value and, start rebuilding there in Arizona. So we got Tennessee up here, and this we got that Robert Saleh defense, okay? Jeremiah Love's off the board. So for me, it comes down to Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese here. They have Jermaine Johnson for only one more year. I always go back to like Fred Warner and him having him there and just how good of a player Sonny Styles can become under the tutelage of Robert Saleh. That's what I keep going back to. And he could really be the captain and the brand for that defense as they're putting it in the mold of Saleh, if that makes sense. So it's crazy to potentially pass on Arvell Reese here, but I'm gonna take Sonny Styles.
Argue. I mean, I said Jeremiah Love might be the number one pick of the draft, but depending on who you talk to, some people might think Styles is. I mean, obviously look at the depth they
Number one on
board
our
as
board, yeah,
well.
yeah.
So other people might agree with that, and they're not necessarily wrong. So not a bad pick by any means.
Cool. Now we got the Giants. Let me move on over.
Well, Giants now newly picking twice in the top 10, so I guess I'll get the first one, you'll get the second one, with number 10. I've seen a lot of different things linked to them. I mean, Caleb Downs has been linked there pretty heavily throughout. Sonny Styles has been talked about with them as well. I've seen, a right tackle, maybe now Maui Noga, and kind of complete the offensive line and kind of fix what pick Evan Neal should have ultimately solved for them a couple years back at right tackle. But for this exercise, again, I wouldn't put significant money on it because, again, I think it kind of comes down to a toss up. I kind of come down to the fact that they just drafted Jackson Dart did, at least Joe Shane did. A lot of his future and honestly everyone's future that's there with John Harbaugh, Matt Nagy, everybody, like it's tied to Jackson Dart. I mean, if Jackson Dart can stay healthy and be the guy that they hope he can be, they're going to have a very long and hopefully productive career for themselves as GM, head coach, and et cetera. I feel like the tiebreaker for them is going to be coming down to we got to make Jackson Dart successful, and we got to do everything in our power to make sure that happens. So for this exercise, I'm going to take Maui Noga here and fill out that offensive line as opposed to taking the safety with a guy like Caleb Downs, who is a great player in his own right, but I'll kind of use the offense as the tiebreaker.
Awesome. Yeah, I think on our final 7 rounder, like what we had, because we had to adjust a little bit after the Dexter Lawrence trade, but like we had Jeremiah Love at 5, right? To help Jackson Dart, and then Maui Noa at 10. So like back to your theme, if you're in the help Jackson Dart type of mold, like imagine those 2 picks to kind of refurbish that for Harbaugh over there. So all right, that puts us with the Browns. I'll move on over to the AFC North, Cleveland, to the dog pound. And I know a lot of people have Monroe Freeling going over there. You got the connection with Todd Monken in Georgia, being entrenched over there. But Arvell Reese isn't available here very often. And I think they'd be surprised if he was on the board. I think that would actually throw everything in a tizzy. They so desperately need also to start building that wide receiver room as well. And I think kind of like Mason Graham last year, I think they just need to hit a double. And I don't think Carnell Tate is like a big bust value, right? We talked about that. That's like in the fairway type of wide receiver. I think he's going to have a really long career. Maybe he's not going to become the explosive dynamo a top 6 wide receiver should normally be, but I think the Browns just need a really good, solid possession receiver and good route runner to help out some of that quarterback stable.
Pick, yeah, rock solid, like you said, for sure. And I think the interesting too is like, let's say in the scenario it happens and Reese is sitting there staring him in the face at 6. I know people have talked about the Cowboys moving up, maybe the Chiefs, maybe they have like Arvell
Yeah,
Reese fever. I think the Browns are one of those teams like the Cardinals where I think if you
absolutely.
could just pick what they want to do, they would love to trade down. So that could be a trade down scenario if
It
this
could
happened in real
be,
life.
yeah, and Jerry could give a haul to get his Micah Parsons replacement in Dallas. So that's a really good point as well. Cool. We got Commanders with the new threads.
Yeah, yeah. So I think in this scenario, obviously, with you taking Tate there, we talked about Reese maybe being a trade up target in this scenario, but if he's not and he's still sitting there at 7, he's not getting past 7. So I'll
Yeah,
take Arvell Reese at 7. Dan Quinn should have a pretty good idea of how to use him, obviously, with his background with Parsons, and that's kind of the archetype that he's molded after for most people. So
yeah, perfect. Yeah, and it's gonna be kind of weird and funny because they got Frankie Lou there, who's been a good player. He's been an NFL top 100 type player. In kind of that hybrid role. They spent a fortune on OA. They signed Chase on, right? What if they put Arvell Reese in an off-ball linebacker role for year one, because that's what the need is there, and start kind of sprinkling the edge rusher stuff because he's so raw and so young, right? Let him do kind of what is natural to him, and start working with him throughout the season on the pass rush type of stuff, and move him to that role down the line. But awesome, very good. So we'll move on to the Saints now. It's very tempting with their love for Ohio State players and Caleb Downs also being number one on the big board. That free safety position isn't really solid. They have a bunch of players on 1-year deals. Jonas Sanker can move over there next to Justin Reed for sure. But with all that being said, Kev, there is literally a hole at strong side defensive end on this depth chart. There's no one there. Like, look, that how rare is that? That we have that situation come up. And I just think, like, what better player to replace Cam Jordan in that organization from day one on that strong side power rusher type of guy. So I keep going back to Ruben Bain for that pick, even though some people might think that that's too early. I like that one.
Yeah, another one of those guys where I know people kind of knock him. He's got some of the off the field questions. It sounds like teams kind of knew about in the past, but got obviously the arm length thing. It's been with him the entire process, but just a rock solid football player. It's hard to argue with anything about him on the field.
Chiefs Kingdom.
Well, again, we talked about them as a trade up team. Maybe they got the 2-1s. This is an interesting little juncture for the Chiefs because I don't think that they're done. I think the demise is probably a little bit early to kind of talk about the Chiefs era and dynasty being over. But, who knows? I mean, they got to replace a lot of players. Chris Jones getting older, Kelsey's getting older. How much longer are they there and all that? But they're in a good spot to get a good player here, whatever it ends up being. Here, I got them filling the right tackle, void, and taking Spencer Fano, who we talked about before. There's, the connection there, obviously, between Whittingham, who was, obviously his coach at Utah. Andy Reid's there with the Chiefs, obviously. And he's not there anymore, but Kyle Whittingham's son, Alex, who's now at Michigan with Kyle, with his dad, used to be on the staff with Andy Reid too. So there is a tie there between the families and stuff. So he'll have all the inside information. Andy Reid historically, and even when he was in Philly, they love taking linemen. This seems like a very Andy Reid type of pick.
Yeah, he fits them like a glove, and the number one priority has to be the rehabilitation of Patrick Mahomes, right? Coming off that ACL, like I know Chiefs fans are pissed anytime you mock a tackle to them, but you really need to protect the franchise, especially, coming off something like that. And Jalen Moore is not that answer. I'm telling you that right now. Or Wanye Morris. They need a good solution, and he's plug and play. He's a really good fit for that team and for that city. So we got now we got the Giants, and it's me. So we're gonna move on back to New York. I'm sure they'd love a defensive tackle. That interior defensive line is stressed right now without Dexter Lawrence. But I'm gonna go ahead with Caleb Downs. They got Noah, right? That was their first pick. It was courtesy of Kevin. So now I'm gonna go with the quarterback on the defense. Harbaugh loves to run that three safety look all the time in Baltimore. That's kind of a staple, and he's going to be the quarterback of that defense.
Yeah, good pick. I mean, obviously, I'm picking here at 11 next up with Miami.
Yes.
The slide, spoiler alert, the slide for Downs would have stopped at 11, so that's where it would have ended. So
Yeah.
I don't think he'd get much further than this round. So that's a good pick. He's in play at 5 for sure too.
Hmm.
All right, so with the Dolphins, Downs being poached right in front, it's a blank slate of sorts. Not entirely, but mostly. I mean, it's a new regime coming in. They're not under the guys that they're going to start winning right now and compete for a Super Bowl this year, even next year. So kind of a wide open slate. They can kind of take the best player available. I'm going to go with just a guy who fits a need. He's going to go in this range, I think, plus or minus a few picks. I'll go with Mansour Delane as a
Yeah.
corner. They've had a big hole there for a couple of years now. He'll go somewhere in this range. I've seen him as high as like in that 9 range, 8, 9, range. I don't think he gets much further than, past the Dolphins, but I'll go with Delane.
Nice. A good pick. That first pick for a new regime, right? Always a lot of eyes because I like same thing with kind of James Gladstone with the Travis. It's who do we want to be? Like who do we want to announce ourselves as to the rest of the National Football League? Like what's going to be our identity? What's going to be our style? That's why, like to your point, if Downs did slide, that's perfect, right? Like that's the kind of guy that they want to associate and align themselves with. But another option might be Makai Lemon, right? Like that tough, gritty type of receiver. We're going to move away from those speed flash receivers like Tyreek. We're going to get to that more Rams mold of dig you out across the middle of the field type of thing too. But the lane that solves a huge need for them on the outside of the boundary corner. Really good player. So we're on to the Cowboys, and I'm gonna go ahead and give them Dylan Thieneman. So Christian Parker is now, I know it might be a little early, but Christian Parker is now the defensive coordinator over there. Came over from Philly, had Cooper DeJean, had Quinyon Mitchell, right? And was literally the secondary coach working with those people. And I think Thieneman is a very similar player to Cooper DeJean in that he could be moved a little bit all over the place. He could play free safety, or he played at Purdue, and then he can get move up into the slot and kind of be a little bit of a chess piece in that defense. So I like that connection.
Oh yeah, I think he's going to go in this range. It'll surprise maybe some people that haven't really followed him throughout the process, but yeah, definitely not a bad pick at all. He'll go somewhere in that middle third of the first
Yeah.
round for sure on Thursday. All right, with the Rams. So I think like in a dream scenario, they would be able to like get Fano to fall to their lap or something like that. I think that would be
Hmm.
like ideal. He's off the board in this at this point. So I'm going to go with a guy that you've talked about. We talked about during the season, late in the year. Just a guy who like would fit, would do great. I'm going to go with Mekhi Lemon
Yeah.
here just because Devontae Adams getting a little bit older. Puka's got some of the off the field stuff. Shouldn't be an issue. You never know. But Mekhi Lemon just feels like a guy that would put up eventually, maybe not year 1 or 2 or anything like that, but would just put up crazy amount of volume stats, just catching a whole bunch of balls in a McVay offense. Just kind of feels like a perfect Rams pick.
Stay local too, right? That's the other thing. Again, that's their brand of player. That's the gritty player that they like. Are we sleeping on potential? And I didn't really think about it much, but are we sleeping on a potential Vega Ioane pick to the Rams on that left guard spot?
Yeah, you never know. I mean, he's such a good player.
Yeah.
Where I think just based on pure talent, he's probably a top 5 type of talent. It's just he's a guard. So like, where do you value that at?
Yeah, I value it right here actually
Yeah.
because I think 14 is the floor. Like they signed John Simpson, right? And they just gave him some money for that left guard job. So either Vega slides in as that starting right guard, or they move John Simpson over and give him dibs at that right guard spot. But either way, you're you're trying to maximize the twilight of Yuli's finest, Derrick Henry. That's what I think you're gonna try to do. Give him the best opportunity. I think that's the best way to help this team win in this window with Jesse Minter. And because there could be an argument made that they should grab Jordan Tyson and give another weapon, and that's the best way to help. But it doesn't feel very Ravensy to me. I feel like they would be more inclined to rebuild that trench as they go through. But that's what I got.
Yeah. Oh, all right. We've kind of, I want to say gone chalk, but like there's been a lot of names that are familiar, kind of tied with those teams, kind of makes sense. We all know Thursday night is going to lead to chaos at some point. There's going to be a couple picks in there, throw everything for a loop. I'm going to start with it now. Oh, the Bucks in this scenario, I think in a perfect world, Ruben Bain just sits there staring him at the face at 15, and they run the card up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's gone. So not an option. Edge rusher kind of gets weird after Bain and Reese and Bailey are well off the board. So you got this like big glut of like 10 guys or so that are like kind of going to go somewhere between 15 and 60. I'm gonna go with one of those guys. I'm gonna go with Malachi Lawrence. Yeah, I think
Wow.
he's got so much buzz on him. I don't think he gets out. My bold take, I don't know how bold it is anymore because other people are saying the same thing, but I don't think he gets out of Thursday night. He'll go in the first round. I think by the end of it, that's my gut feel, my guess. Probably the floor is somewhere around San Francisco. This I think would be as high as he could potentially go. He's crushed the whole process. At the end of the day, just a guy with his type of movement skills, explosion off the line, the size, the measurables, all that kind of stuff, the production. I just feel like he'll go in the first round. So why not at 15? It's all a toss up at this point.
Speaking of floors, fans, I'm sorry, Bucks fans are on the floor right now after that pick. Not because it's bad, because it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the NFL draft, right? Like all it takes is one pick like that. Like someone that keeps coming to my mind for them is Keldrick Falk, just because Todd Bowles loves to have that strong side player. And that's a very toolsy, traitsy type of guy that Jason Light's inclined to roll the dice on. But wow, cool. But Bucks fans will be really happy because if you follow them, like we do, a big majority of them, they could not pound any harder on the table for an edge rusher. You'll make them very happy as long as Malachi's getting to the quarterback. So that puts us on the Jets. So just as a quick reminder, we had David Bailey go with that first Jets pick, and I'm gonna go ahead now, and this is where the Jordan Tyson slide stops for them. I'm giving them another receiver. Now you got a trio of Adonai Mitchell, Garrett Wilson, and Jordan Tyson. So whoever that quarterback is in 2027, they're coming out of the box, and that good offensive line, they're coming out of the box ready to deal. Like and they're gonna need to start right away. They're setting the foundation for that success.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that'd be a perfect situation for whoever ends up being the 27 pick to kind of walk in the door and maybe not come to a team that's got a great record the previous year from the 2026 season. We'll see what ends up coming from that, but they should have a pretty good setup going into 27.
The only thing that scares me to death about this pick is pairing Jordan Tyson with that MetLife turf.
Yeah, true.
Scared.
Not a marriage made in heaven there for sure.
No, but we'll see what happens. That's what we're going with.
All right. Well, we got the Lions up here. There's two linemen that have been widely tied to them. Yeah, I think that people have talked about them in a lot of scenarios. So Monroe Freeling's one of them. Caden Proctor's the other one. Those are two names that have been kind of talked about pretty ad nauseum. I wouldn't be shocked if, depending on how they feel about one of them or someone else, who knows, I wouldn't be shocked at all if they maybe move up a little bit because that offensive line run's going to happen at some point, maybe right in front of them. So I'm going to go just based off of feel and the vibe of it because they have Sewell that can move over to left tackle pretty easily. They've talked about that.
Yeah, we've already moved them on the depth chart.
Yeah. So I've talked about that happening. So now you have a right tackle hole. I'm gonna go with Caden Proctor. He just kind of
Your
feels,
nemesis.
yeah, it just feels like a guy that I do feel like with Hank Fraley there in Detroit, Dan Campbell, if he can't kind of get his weight in control and be the best version of himself, it's a him problem at that point. So it'd be probably a pretty good fit for his career, I think.
Yeah, and if he does start to struggle, kind of like Evan Neal did, another Bama guy, you move him inside, and he probably has a future there at the worst case scenario. But I like that a lot with Sewell at the left tackle, and you got a mammoth on the right hand side. That's going to be a really interesting pick because do they want to kind of go with that Taylor Decker blueprint with Monroe Freeling, and keep Penei Sewell on that right hand side, or do they want to go kind of this new age where they get a snow plow on the right hand side for Jahmyr Gibbs, who could still move in space and create some of those holes on those kind of design plays. We're now on to the Vikings, and I'm going to keep this very simple because James Pierre is slated as a starter, and that terrifies me. So Jermod McCoy, here we go, number 18, and if they get previous pre-injury Jermod McCoy, this is going to be an awesome pick for the Vikings.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those picks where, like, had he played the way he did in 24 and had he played this year and had put on that type of tape on the field, he's probably going off the board in the top 5, 6, 7 picks, So getting him at an injury discount, assuming he's healthy, hard to argue with that.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
then with the Panthers, I'm gonna go chalk here. I know it kind of went off the board with the last NFC South pick with the Bucks. I'm gonna go more chalk here with Kenyon Sadiq. Again, it's kind of all about Bryce Young at this point. Like they got Ted McMillan last year. It looks like they hit on that one. Just feels like the more they can put around him, like the more that they can properly judge him. So Sadiq just feels like this is his value too. This is his range, I think.
I love it because that tight end depth chart has done no favors. And what do people always say? That tight end's the quarterback's best friend, right? And without a security blanket like that, it's been a lot tougher than it has to be on Bryce Young. But now all of a sudden you have the NFL Rookie of the Year, Ted McMillan on the boundary in the red zone. Have hopefully Xavier Leggett can start to put it a little bit together. And now you add Kenyon Sadiq, and Jalen Coker's a nice player too, right? So with all that considered, now you're running out of excuses a little bit. One interesting thought that I'll throw to you: what about a Devin Lloyd Jacob Rodriguez pairing at like that?
Yeah, it's funny because I think Rodriguez would not shock me if he goes somewhere in the back half of one, and people are going to lose their minds and be like, "Whoa, I thought he was a day 2 pick." It would not shock me if he went somewhere in this range. Would be something that's definitely possible.
Yep. So this is that would be like turnover city with the Cowboys with those two, right? But I mentioned something a little bit earlier. We're on the Cowboys now, and I did the last Cowboys pick, and I selected Dylan Thieneman for him. I mentioned Christian Parker, right? And that blueprint that I mentioned to you, Kevin, was Cooper DeJean and a smaller school guy that went to the Senior Bowl that rocked it, and Quinyon Mitchell, who's become a very nice pro. Right. And there's another guy that's kind of matching that DNA and blueprint, and that's Chris Johnson. So that's what I'm going with here, to pair with Dylan Thieneman, and that great rebuild of 2026 of that secondary is in full way. And for a defensive backs archetype defensive coordinator, Christian Parker's smiling like the Cheshire Cat.
That's a good pick. I mean, he's another one of those names where I think a lot of people could be a little bit surprised that who's a
Yeah.
San Diego State corner going in there, but I think he's definitely got a case to be made that he goes somewhere in this range, so not a bad pick. All
Pittsburgh,
right.
12 picks.
Yeah.
Steelers have 12 picks in this draft. I
Yeah,
got
and I don't
Carpal
know.
Tunnel doing their graphic.
Yeah, I don't know if they have 12 open roster spots. Maybe we see them get a little bit
Frisky.
aggressive to move up and acquire some guys, that they're targeting on day 2 or whatever. I look at them again, like, not a terrible roster. Obviously, the big hole at quarterback, we don't know what Aaron Rodgers is doing. Who does? But I know a lot of people have talked about receiver with them. I know they got Pittman, DK's there, Roman Wilson. The thing that I keep coming back to, I know Omar Khan, who's been in Pittsburgh a very, very long time, has not been the decision maker until, Kevin Colbert stepped aside. But historically, you look what the Steelers have done, they don't take receivers in the first round, historically. Like, you look at all their best receivers, they're all, mid to late round guys. I mean, so I'm not gonna go. I know teams break trends all the time. I mean, once upon a time, the Seahawks don't take first round corners, they take Devin Witherspoon. So it happens. Teams will break the trend. Golden to the Packers last year was another one. They never take receivers until they take Golden. But I'm gonna veer away from receiver. I'm gonna go a little bit off the board here too. Just kind of feels like a Steeler. I'm gonna go with Keelan Rutledge. I'm gonna go with a guy that a lot of people are not talking about as a first round pick, and everyone's kind of got him in that second round mix. I don't think he gets out of the second round. Like, that's his worst case scenario. I know Daniel Jeremiah and some others have talked about, they're hearing some buzz on him in the first round over the last like month or so. So why not Pittsburgh? Just feels like a Steeler.
It's so funny. I don't know if I can't remember if it was Rutledge, but I think his comp was Mason McCormick.
Right there.
So that's really funny, and that is a graveyard at left guard, and they're not going to go into the season with that as the solution right now. So I've been thinking Pregnon there forever, right? Because that also makes sense, just the plug and play Blastoise left guard. Keelan Rutledge, I might look really stupid saying this after the draft, but I think he's going to hear his name called Thursday night. I think that's just a lot of people have him as their favorite player. Like, not best player, but like if they could, go in a bar fight with one person, the NFL GMs pick Keelan Rutledge. Like, he's that type of nasty type of guy, and he does fit that Steelers look. And this is really infuriating because that was going to be my pick for the Chargers. That was going to be my pick for the
He
Chargers.
fits them too. He fits Harbaugh like a glove also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that Mike McDaniel run defense, really athletic, physical guy. So now I'm kind of panicking a little bit with this Chargers pick. Give me a second here. Let's see. They could use another pass rusher, but Mesidor is a little bit more of that diesel and power guy. I think they need a little bit more of a speed type rusher.
The Oway replacement. Yeah.
Yeah, the OA replacement. No receiver. Keldrick Falk, again, similar to Tuli Tuipolotu. Um, they just re-signed T.R. Tart, Kenny McDonald, Anthony Hill, Kristen Miller. I'm gonna go against everything I've said because I'm such a hypocrite because I think this player has the best chance to slip a long way. But also, like, you know what? Let's go Peter Woods here.
Oh, wow.
Let's go with Peter Woods here.
Yeah, your guy.
My guy. Like, just let him be gone. Go in that first round. They do need a 3 technique, and he feels like someone that they might like in that position. So let's get Peter Woods in there.
Nice, nice.
I feel
It was against every fiber of your being.
wow. Let me fire up the Eagles for you.
Right, 23 with Philly. Again, I don't know on Thursday night if he actually gets this far, but for this exercise, he's still there. So I'm gonna go with a guy who I just feel like is probably like the perfect situation for him because he's maybe not day one ready and he'd be, transitioning, across the sides to the right side if need be. I'm gonna go with Monroe Freeling just as a
Oh.
guy that he doesn't have to be an instant impact guy with Lane Johnson still there and obviously Mailata at left tackle. He can be the swing tackle, which has been Fred Johnson for them the last few years in Philly, but he can be the swing tackle and then Lane Johnson who's flirted with retirement. Maybe in a year from now, he's out of the picture and then Freeling with a year of development, even without Stoutland still there, but they have a chance maybe to have him ready to go and just kind of feels like an Eagles pick, even dating back to the Andy Reid era. Like I said, they've always valued big guys, offense, defensive line. That's kind of always been their bread and butter early, preferably. So I'll go with Monroe Freeling as like a very Eagles pick that could make Pro Bowls down the road with their development.
You keep sniping me, and I feel like you're doing this on purpose. With the Browns up now, like that was, the ideal pick. But
Yep.
hey, it's another Georgia guy going to Philly, right? So if
They
you're
love
going on
Georgia.
if you're going on tendencies, that's a really good one to gamble on. So let's go back to Cleveland here. And now I'm gonna look like an idiot trying to regroup again because I can't. It's amazing how these GMs do this. Kev. Like when you're like one pick away and you have a plan and that plan just goes to the shredder. So we got Carnell Tate earlier, first with that first pick, but we did mention that might be a trade down situation, right, with the Cowboys. But Kev, I was convinced you're taking McNeil Warren for the Eagles to match up Toledo folks. Like, I was convinced that you were going that way. So Blake Miller's too much for projection. We already took a receiver. Traden Stukes is probably a little early there. It's probably going to be Caleb Lomu, Kev. Yeah, that's what it's looking like. So I don't think that was their plan A, but sometimes you can't get everything you want in life.
And the Browns probably they're doing this obviously in their own war room, going through all these different scenarios. Do we take Tate and then come away with maybe Freeling? Lomu's our like emergency option we feel like we can get, or do we take the tackle at 6 and then come back with like Omar Cooper, insert receiver here, Concepcion, a Denzel Boston type. So like they're playing that game right now. Tate and Lomu's not bad. I
It
think
could be Garrett Bowles.
yeah, he's a natural pass blocker. Probably got to get a little bit stronger.
And so did Bowles when he came out, remember? He needed a little
Mhm.
more sand in the pants.
Yeah. So yeah, it could be a good pick. He'll go in this range. I think Lomu will go late one. If I had to guess.
All right, we got
All
the
right.
Bears
So
now.
up with the Bears, coming off of a good season. I'm gonna go with a defensive player that we've kind of talked about a little bit. He could go higher than this. It's kind of like beauty's in the eye of the beholder with Keldrick Falk, but
Ooh.
he's interesting because of all the traits. He's so young. The upside's there. You see it at times, but then you have some people that say Kieran Crawford's better, his Auburn teammate.
Mhm.
So um, he'll go, I think, somewhere in this range, somewhere in the back half of round one feels right for him. But he kind of feels like some of the guys like that fit that Saints mold. From the Dennis Allen years, they can be like Peyton Turner, Davenport, some of these like bigger guys that kind of have the frame, the size, the
Mhm.
projection. So I'll go with Falk as a Dennis Allen pick.
Okay. Awesome. I know some Bears fans are probably cussing you out. We need safeties, but they'll survive a Falk. He's a very they like that strong side defensive end. It's Dennis Allen, right? So they like that strong side defensive end. So he fits the scheme like a glove. It's hard to argue that 100%. So now we get to the Bills. Um, and they're moving to that 3-4 on defense, but it doesn't matter because we're going with Denzel Boston here. We're going Denzel. I thought about Pregnon just because that left guard spot is a little bit tenuous, but I think they're gonna ask for a mulligan with Keon Coleman, and that mulligan is Denzel Boston.
A good pick. He's gonna go in that range too. I think he's definitely seems to have a lot of steam behind him.
Yes, sir. We got San Fran.
Well, I would have, I think Malachi Lawrence, would fit here had I not pulled the trigger on him up there for Tampa in the middle of the first round of 15. I think this is probably realistic. If I had to guess, if I was actually like betting, I would say he probably goes more in this range if he goes in the first round, which I think he does. I'm gonna stay in the same neighborhood though. I'm gonna stick with the edge rusher situation there because they only had, I think it was like 20 sacks last year. I know Nick Bosa's had the injury and all that, but I feel like edge rusher seems to be a good fit, and I'm going to go with a guy that you and I both like a lot, and it depends on where the league values him because he's kind of niche in some senses, but feels like a good scheme fit there, and I'll go with Cassius Howell just to give him
Nice.
the edge.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense than a Messidor, even though Messidor's like such a plug and play, player. Just Cassius Howell, speed off the edge, and Michael Williams could reduce inside on those pass rush downs, type of thing, in that defensive scheme. Because Raheem there now, right? Raheem Moore is over there, so that makes a ton of sense. Like thinking back to Atlanta, right, Kev? Like Jalen Walker, same role as Jalen Walker as that kind of blitzing uh, wide edge player, linebacker type player. So we got Cassius Howell to the 49ers, and that brings us to the Texans. And for the Texans, I'm gonna go with Katie McDonald here.
Yeah, it's a popular one. Good player.
I just in that division where I think a lot of these teams are going to try to start run the ball, especially if Tennessee ends up with Jeremiah Love. You really got to counter that with your own chess move. And I think Caden McDonald's the best in the class in doing just that. So that defense is already freaky. Add him, and you're kind of unleashing a whole new paradigm of that defense.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I mean, he's one of those guys where I think if I had to guess, just personally, like if we
Mhm.
get one defensive tackle to go in the first round, I know Peter Woods is already off in this scenario.
Yeah,
I think McDonald's probably the guy who put the best odds to go Thursday night.
for sure. All right, Chiefs.
Again, there's actually a sneaky amount of needs for the Chiefs. Like I wouldn't surprise me if they did go receiver, if they went defensive end, they go corner. I mean, there's a lot of different things. Um, that could be in play here. I'm gonna go. Last year they took a dude. They're in the third round, I believe, with Ashton Gigliotti, who I liked a lot coming out. But like, I think of him, and I know he's young, he's got potential to grow into even more, and maybe he does. I'm gonna go with a guy that's basically him, just maybe not much younger, maybe actually be older. But I'm gonna go with Mesidor because I feel like he's like the supreme version of him, and just to kind of give them some more juice on the defensive line. And I don't know that he makes it this far, but if he does, it just feels like a slam dunk type pick where he's just like an all day type affair. Like, why not take him? He's a really good pick.
Karloftis and Messidor is going to be like Bane Messidor all over again. That Miami Hurricanes defense. I like that one a lot, Kev. That's a really good pick. Nice one there. Let's see here. It's going to go to the Miami Dolphins. Back on the clock. So just as a reminder for folks, we had Mansour Delane go to the Dolphins with the first pick, and they have a billion needs. Maybe a billion and one. McNeil Warren, I like that one a lot, but I think they need to start rebuilding that wide receiver room. So I'm going to go with KC Concepcion. Even though Omar Cooper feels more of a Packers wide receiver, right? Because this is the Packers regime with John Eric Sullivan and Halfley and all that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they opted to go in that direction, but I'm going to go with KC Concepcion just because it's just a field stretching juice player.
Yeah, good pick. I mean, he's going to go in this range. He's a good player. I know he's got some of his issues, with the drop rate that people love to cite, but he's as explosive as you're going to find for sure. I mean, he's a weapon.
All right. Is it time?
It's time. I'm not going to lie. I actually thought about Jacob Rodriguez at a couple other different points. We
Yeah.
talked about him already, around 20 or so. But I don't want to say this is his floor, but I kind of feel
Feels
like,
like it.
yeah, this feels like a very predictable, safe landing spot for Jacob Rodriguez to go to New England. Feels like a pretty safe bet. So Rodriguez is finally off the board with the Patriots.
It's Jacob Rodriguez or Chad Muma. Like, pick your fighter. Who would you rather have?
Yeah.
That's such a big hole. And I swear, Kev, we were onto this Rodriguez to the Pats thing like a billion years ago. We down to the whole mustache bit with Vrabel, and now I'm seeing it picked up on national syndicates, and it's sickening because depth had it first, and depth will have it last. And then when it doesn't happen, depth will look really stupid. But that's the draft, baby. So we got Seattle coming up here, and with the Seahawks, like the most popular pick here is far and away Jadarian Price that I'm seeing. I don't see it. I think that's way too rich. Like, I'm sorry. I know they need a running back. You grab one later. I like two corners here for them because I like Traden Stukes and I like Colton Hood, but I give the edge to Stukes because I think he could play more of a nickel role because he's so physical and he plays like a Seahawk. And he's a tall, lean player. We like him a lot. The only thing that gives me pause in this scenario is I never in a million years did I think McNeil Warren would be here at 32. So does that give them pause? Because imagine pairing McNeil Warren with Nick Manwari as the safeties, right?
A fun
So
combo.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to zig. You probably thought I was going to do Stuke. I set you up and then I zigged. Again, but like that's such a Schneider thing to happen with the Seahawks. Doesn't it feel like every year, like they just have a player fall into their lap like that just by being patient? It's crazy.
That's a good pick. Yeah, hard to argue. He was going to be in play here with 33 for
Mm.
sure.
I
Um,
sniped you back.
Yeah, he was one of the guys on the short list as I go through it here. So the Jets are interesting. Obviously, we talked about it. They've got the massive hole quarterback. Geno's there for now. Ty Simpson's sitting there staring him in the face. But I think most people are of the mind that the Jets have their eyes fully on 2027's class. They're not as much worried about Ty Simpson or anyone else in this class at this juncture. So I'm going to veer off of Ty Simpson and kind of just look at what's going to set them up maybe the best kind of going forward into next year and, as they kind of lay the foundation. So you took one DB. I'll take another one. I'll take the guy you were also talking about. I'll take Stukes. Just a
Whoa.
versatile guy who I think is probably going to go in the top 40 if I had to guess. So this kind of feels like in his range, late 1, early 2. Should be a guy that, I know Minka's there as well, but kind of gives him like a versatile guy to kind of grow into that role long term with Aaron Glenn.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of buzz on D'Angelo Pons, Kev, because I was watching a program, I forget which one, but they put the player card up with Aaron Glenn, and it was almost a mirror match. So like that would be a really interesting thing, to pair a player like that in that secondary. Just let him be a bulldog nickel. But Stukes, awesome player. We love Stukes. I already made the pick for the Arizona Cardinals because it's like that's the only spot I see Ty Simpson going. I'm sorry, and Arizona Cardinals fans, this is just my take. If you trade up into the first to take them, right? Unless it's a small jump where you're giving up, a 6 rounder or whatever, and make it worth it for that 5th year option, which I don't think you'll ever see. But I I would just wait because I don't see any competition for you guys for him. I just don't. I think if you just stay put, he'll fall to your lap. I could be totally wrong, and I could look so stupid, if the Jets or whoever take him, or the Browns or whatever take him, and they're just hiding it super well. But I just don't see a lot of poker players at the table for Ty Simpson.
You know what's interesting? I thought about it the other day is I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's all a game of musical chairs, and most of these
Hmm.
quarterbacks and these teams have all filled their seat. And if you're the Cardinals, let's say, and we don't know for sure, everyone assumes they like him a lot, they love him. Who knows? Let's say they like him, they don't love him.
Hmm.
What if they just said, you know what, we're going to call the whole league's bluff, and we just think he's going to get there into the third round. Like we're just going to say Pittsburgh, like, and they just let him slide. They said, screw it. There's a guy here at the top of the second that we're in love with, and they just said, you know what, we love this dude. We like Ty, but we don't think anyone else is in the tie business. We're going to let him fall to the third. Like that might be crazy, but it's the draft. You never know. Like I thought about it. You know,
Yeah.
it's possible.
It happened with Shador, and then it happened again, and it happened again, and it happened again.
Yeah.
5 rounds, so you never know what. That's the beauty of this, and that's why it's so exciting. So we got the Titans up next.
All right. So Sonny Styles went first to them.
Yes.
Interesting thing here. I mean, this kind of feels like the receiver spot. I know we've had a couple guys go with Denzel Boston, Concepcion. The best guy I feel like that hasn't gone is Omar Cooper. And I feel like with Cam Ward there, like this is a regime that, it's a new coaching staff, same GM that drafted Cam Ward. They're kind of like the Giants, like I was talking about with Dart, like their whole fate hinges on number one. Like that's it. Like if he's good, they'll probably be there for a long time. If he's not good, they're going to be looking for jobs in the next 2 to 3 years. So I think they got to give everything they can to helping him. So I went with Omar. I know they just got Wandale in there too. That helps coming over with Dayball, but I'll go with Omar Cooper just as a very quarterback friendly guy. We don't know how
Jacoby
long he'll.
Myers. Jacoby
Yeah.
Myers.
Yeah. And I know Ridley's back at least for another year. We don't know long term what that ends up looking like, but Omar Cooper gives them a guy that can probably grow with Cam Ward and hopefully for their sake, make sure that he's successful.
2 things on that pick. Number 1, I'm surprised you didn't go local, shop local with Colton Hood, because that he feels like a Titans solid type corner, and Gus Bradley and all them, like a really physical guy. Number 2, Fernando Mendoza is somewhere screaming because the Raiders are now on the clock, and he thought he had a chance, but he didn't, unfortunately. So now the Raiders are gonna have to pivot. So we're gonna move on over there to see what's going on. But well, okay, Blake Miller would be a really interesting guy here at right tackle, upgrade from DJ Glaze. But that 3 technique spot is just it's a shame, quite frankly. I'm just kind of torn because it's one of those things, right? Like you just mentioned it, you want to help out the quarterback as much as you can and get them weapons, and that wide receiver room is a disaster. But you just took the guy I really wanted. Let's just go Caleb Banks here. Let's go Caleb Banks, and hopefully, he's healthy enough where putting him at that 3 tech spot will pay some dividends. They need some interior force.
Yeah, and he'll probably go somewhere in this range. I think he's too talented to fall super far, and I think once he gets to night 2, the value becomes a lot more enticing for a guy with his question marks, with injuries and whatnot, but good pick, I think, there.
Awesome. Giants, we got Noah and we had Caleb Downs.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned earlier, I mean, Jordan Tyson's kind of been the immediate talk, him at 10. Maybe it happens. In this scenario, it didn't. Again, making sure Dart's successful is going to be of the utmost importance. Now, the receiver mix is kind of interesting at this range, with all the guys that have kind of come off. I mean, you're talking about the Jeremy Bernards, Antonio Williams. Is it too early for a Ted Hurst type of guy who's gotten a lot of steam? Brazel, things like that. I'm gonna go with receiver, a guy I like a lot. I'm gonna go with Bernard. Go to the Alabama store. The receivers historically hit. I just feel like he's another guy who's like quarterback friendly, an all around guy who I don't think is a guy who's you're gonna worry about as a bust. Like I feel like bare minimum he's gonna be a really good pro and a guy who's gonna help your quarterback, whoever that ends up being. So I'll put him here to pair with Malik Neighbors and give Jackson Dart some help.
Nice. Or Giants. I was surprised Kristen Miller was. I know you're a big Kristen Miller guy, so that was definitely I was preparing for you to take him there actually. And now I have to pivot a little bit because you get to the Texans and everybody's always saying the exact same thing, Kev. We don't have a lot of holes, and that's true. You really don't. So you can go any which way, but after Caden McDonald went earlier for helping out that run defense, I'm gonna go ahead with I know a guard would be helpful, even though they just signed Wyatt Teller, Evan Brown, and re-signed Ed Ingram. I do understand that, but let's give another third rusher to them, and I'm gonna go deny Dennis Sutton because those two guys. Will Anderson just got paid, Danielle Hunter got paid. They can't play every snap, so they need some young buck to start doing that, and then now you have a nice succession plan for Hunter when it's time to hit that twilight.
Yeah, and Dennis Sutton's he's probably the forgotten guy that's in that, like, range of 15 to 65, those defensive ends, and there's, like, 10 of them, so it's easy to forget 1 or 2 of those names. But, yeah, he's gonna go, I think, probably somewhere at the latest early 3rd. He could go as high as this pick, wouldn't shock me. He's a good player. He's in that mix for sure.
Cleveland.
Cleveland. So they went with Tate and Lomu. So they went offense, first 2 go rounds. I'm going to pivot to the defensive side, and I'm going to take another one of those edge rushers, a guy that's gotten a lot of juice and a lot of buzz around the league with different people apparently talking to people around the league. I'm going to go with R. Mason Thomas as a guy that
Ooh.
I don't know where he goes. Some people talk about first round. I think that's a little rich, but I think he does realistically go somewhere in the second round. So I'll put him in Cleveland here.
I thought I thought you were gonna go with the Gabe Akis, Myles Garrett combo.
Yeah, also would be a good fit. I'm a big Akis guy, as we know.
Mhm. Wow, okay, cool. They do need a rusher. I think they just got Isaiah McGuire in his last year of his deal. So you guys, Browns fans, you gotta start Miles can't do it all. He needs some help on the other side. So definitely a good option there. So we're gonna go back to the Chiefs now in the AFC West. And just as a reminder, the Chiefs took Messidor, the Chiefs took Fano, the Chiefs took Colton Hood. Easy. Replace Trent McDuffie in that secondary.
Also, one of the guys I was thinking about earlier when I was picking for them and took Mesidor, but
Bengals are finally on the clock, Kev.
yeah, after getting Dexter Lawrence a week early with their 10th pick, I feel like, again, offensive line has just always been a problem for them for forever. It doesn't matter. Even when they went to the Super Bowl and their offensive line was an issue, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, you see, there's like a number of offensive linemen that are there right there at the top of our board and guys that seem to fit. And a lot of guys that wouldn't be shocking if they go on Thursday night. They just got Dexter Lawrence. Obviously, T. Higgins is there. I'm gonna go with another Clemson guy. I'm gonna go with Blake Miller just as a offensive lineman, tackle. They can figure it out with. I know some people think he's a little bit raw and developmental. Maybe he is, but I'll go with the Clemson ties and just take the best available offensive lineman to kind of figure it out for them to protect Joe Burrow finally.
I was surprised no Pregnon at left guard. You
Also
know,
in the
be,
mix for sure. Yeah.
yeah, because he's their type. Like they like the big gap scheme guy like Cody Fords, Orlando Brown, those big guys that can push people around. But we got Blake Miller there and we got New Orleans on the clock now. And for New Orleans, Kev, I'm gonna get Kellen Moore some help because we started off with Ruben Bain and now we're gonna get Chris Bell. Very similar player to who we had in AJ Brown in Philadelphia. So I think he'll know how to use him off the rip.
Tyler Shuck connection.
Yep, that too. Look at that. Keep an eye on that one, people. I'm calling it right now. Keep an eye on Chris Bell to the Saints if he's around.
That's a good pick. He's another one of those guys where had he not got the ACL injuries, probably in the mix to go about 20 picks earlier. So good pick there.
Miami.
All right. Again, another one where it's kind of go a lot of different directions here, honestly. Let's see. So with their roster kind of wanting, now we went with Concepcion was the second one, right? So it went Delane, Concepcion already. So I think, most of the time regimes, they kind of take over. They just want to like start in the trenches and just kind of build, from there. I'm going to go with the guy who I think's in this. We kind of mentioned him a couple of times. I'm a big fan of him. I think he's one of those tempo setter type guys. Again, very low bust factor in my opinion. I'm going to go with Christian Miller as just a guy that put him next to Kenneth Grant, just get a bunch of big bodies inside and just kind of start on defense with being bullies up front, inside, and kind of growing with those two. So I'll go with that to start. They could go in a billion different directions, so nothing would shock me really.
Yeah, their whole roster is a team need. Another guy that might fit them is like a TJ Parker, who's apparently like a really good character guy, leader type of guy to help rebuild some of that culture in there. Okay, so we got now back to the Jets. Back to the Jets. All right, so just as a reminder, we had Traden Stukes, Jordan Tyson, and David Bailey to the Jets. All right, so okay, we got you know what? It's already one of their strengths. Like we said earlier, Kev, like get that table set for the quarterback in 27. So I'm going to go Chase Besantis, slot him in right at that right guard spot right away, and keep assembling around that quarterback spot for next year.
Yeah, another one of those guys who I feel like would he sneak into Thursday night? Maybe. But if not, I think this is a perfectly adequate value for him.
You had him to the Texans Mach 1.0.
I did. Yeah, I did. He's in that mix. And again, like everything I think the Jets are doing is about setting it up for insert quarterback here in 27. So good pick.
Cool.
So we went with Vega, the first go around with the Ravens. Let's see how they could go. I think Christian Park would be fun there. He just kind of feels like a Raven had he been there. I'll go with the guy you just mentioned. Again, like with some of the edge rush guys coming off the board kind of in waves. A guy just feels Raveny, and that's Gabe Akis. We talked about him already. Just feels Raveny to me. Just feels like a guy would fit in perfect there. Put him in the rotation, and then maybe he grows into more as time goes on. But I'll go with Akis.
Yeah, he is Raveny. That's for sure. And we don't really know what's going on with Mike Green. But even though you get Trey Hendrickson in the building, he can't do everything by himself. You still need some help on that front. On to the Bucks. NFC South, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Still got a lot of offensive linemen on the board, but we're gonna go nice and easy. Anthony Hill Jr. Plays Lavonte David. It's important.
Actually, when we were doing it earlier, I don't know if they'll actually do it, but I went off the grid a little bit with Malachi Lawrence. I thought about Jacob Rodriguez at that high. So getting a linebacker like Hill at that point would be pretty good value.
Nice.
So let's
Now we
see.
got
Now
the
you got the Colts
Colts.
finally picking. Again, I'll go with a guy. They've gone to this store before as a program with Alec Pierce. They just traded for Sauce. He feels like a tradesy guy that they're gonna like in Indy. Kind of fills a lot of different roles for him because he is so talented. I'm gonna go Jake Golday from Cincinnati. Just feels like Chris Ballard's
He
type of
does.
music.
He really does. Yeah. Get as close to the 10 RAS score as you possibly can at linebacker. And that's Chris Ballard's music. Makes a ton of sense. This is another easy pick coming up for me. A team that, again, pick in this draft for the Falcons. And with the sudden retirement of Caleb McGarry, they patched it with Jawan Taylor for a year. But this is the perfect player to put behind him to stew for a year because he's still a little bit raw, but he's got a huge ceiling, and that's Maxi Iheanacho.
Yeah, he's gotten some first round buzz too, so that wouldn't necessarily be crazy if he went a little bit higher. But if he goes at this juncture, that'd be fantastic.
Minnesota. Minnesota.
So first, we went with Jermod McCoy, if I remember right,
Yes.
for them. So safety's still a big need. I don't know if the value is necessarily going to match up based on the way the board has kind of fallen for them.
Running back, maybe.
What's that?
Running back, maybe.
Maybe.
That's a big need. Center's a big need. Defensive interior, big need.
Yeah. So we got. See, so I'll go. Yeah, a lot of those guys are going. Let's say, yeah, because Banks, Woods, Miller, all those guys are gone. Let me see. Yeah, we had the big run there. I'll go. No, never mind. We'll call audible on that one. You know, I'll agree with you. We got, Aaron Jones a little bit older. Jadarian Price kind of feels like a good value pick in the middle of the second round.
Yeah.
Feels like a good pick. I mean, he's a good pick. He's a good player.
It's a home run hitter.
Getting him at this point and then letting him grow into being your bell cow in the next year or two seems like a good pick.
I like that one a lot. I think that's a good fit for what they're trying to do. And then we got the Lions here. So they took Caden Proctor, and now they're going to take Derek Moore. Another Michigan edge rusher, power rusher off that strong side that they're looking for opposite Aiden Hutchinson. I like that pick a lot.
Yeah, I mean, again, like so much of these, mock drafts, if you're trying to like guess and trying to get it right, a lot of it just comes down to like who feels like a lion, who feels like a ram, who feels like he does feel like a lion. Obviously, he's in their backyard too, so it just feels like a good match. And so I took Sadiq the first go around. Next time around, let's see. Well, they got Jalen Phillips in free agency. They had a couple young guys they drafted last year with Scorton and Princely.
Luke Fortner's their starting center.
Luke Fortner at center. So if they wanted to, I mean, they could, get into like the Logan Jones business. I don't know, maybe a little bit
Trey
high.
Zune
Trey
business.
Zune, like some of those guys. Teams will draft for need at this point. So like it might be a little aggressive to some teams, maybe not to them. If they wanted to go with someone inside with Derek Brown and kind of like build an even bigger fortress. Yeah, we have had big runs here. I will take, let me just double check. I'll go with the guy we kind of mentioned, could go higher than this. And I'll go with D'Angelo Pons as a nickel corner for them.
Ooh, spicy. I like that.
with Smith Wade in the mix there at nickel. I just feel like, again, kind of like a culture guy. Just feels like a guy Dan Morgan's gonna really like there as the GM. So
I think
he'll
so. Yeah.
probably go somewhere in the second round. So it seems like a good fit.
I like that. That works for sure. Okay, we're on to the Packers. TJ Parker's still on the board. TJ Parker's still on the board. That's crazy. Zion Young's still on the board. Jennings Dunker, Antonio Williams, Brandon Cisse. You know what? I'm gonna go Brandon Cisse, corner for them. I think that I know, but like I feel like he could go there and be successful. You know what I mean? Like that's one of those teams that he would be able to do. All right, Pittsburgh, you already got them a offensive lineman, if I remember correctly, in Keelan Rutledge.
Yeah. So I kind of talked about before how the Steelers historically look at all the receivers going back like 10, 15 years. They're all guys that are second to, day three type guys. So they've got the two taller, big bodied receivers with DK and Pittman. I'm gonna compliment. I know Roman Wilson's there. I'm gonna go with Antonio Williams and give him that inside presence, kind of pair with them. Whoever the quarterback ends up being next year and beyond, but that's a pretty good trio of receivers, and a fourth being Roman Wilson. Not too shabby.
Such a good pick. Full disclosure, that's going to be their second round pick in our final mock too. Right, so just that guy who could operate in the middle of the field and dig stuff out. He's a phantom. He's a good player. I really like that pick a lot. Now we're on to the Eagles again, and as a reminder, the Eagles already took Monroe Freeling in that offensive line room. I know how he's going to be having to be pulled away from taking CJ Allen here, another Georgia player, right? You know what? It's going to be a little bit of a reach here, but they just need a safety so bad. And AJ Halsey's that tone setter guy. So him next to Makuba. Let's all right.
Next up with
Chargers.
the Chargers. So went defensive tackle last time with Peter
Yes.
Woods. Let's say I think it's very realistic, like you said. I mean, that they would have taken Rutledge had he fallen there. That he hasn't. Now they got Pregnon staring him in the face.
Yeah.
The football gods have smiled upon them. A guard has fallen into their lap in the second round. Pregnon's there. Take another Oregon Duck to protect their Oregon Duck quarterback. It just feels like at this point, if this ends up happening in reality, they'd run the card up. So Pregnon here to the Chargers.
Hey, time, Jags. And there's some names I wasn't expecting to be around.
Yeah.
TJ Parker especially.
Yeah, he's
I'm
a
not
standout for sure.
I'm not crazy about it, you know. Yeah, I don't think he's a bad player. He's just not my favorite at that spot. Lee Hunter's another player, right? That is a little bit lower on a board with how he graded out. I could see them liking him a lot, but Grayson Halton's obviously on the board, which we're a big fan of. And I know we said privately they'll if they follow that Rams model, we don't know if James Gladstone wants to be a carbon copy of Les Snead. He might not. If they follow that Rams model, they'll wait till day three or later day two for a linebacker. But CJ Allen's right there, and I think that wiring and makeup is just too hard to pass. That's Jags DNA all day with how he played hurt, even though he knew it would mess up his medical more for the draft. He didn't care because he wanted to win.
That's a good pick right there. I mean, I think most people expect him to go top 40, top 45-ish. I've seen some people think that maybe he sneaks into Thursday night, maybe he does. It's one of those things where it's depending on how their board looks, there's a very good chance if he is sitting there that he's just easily his card on the board is way above everybody else's. So in that scenario, kind of need goes out the window. You got to take the best player, who does also fill a need as well. So back up with the Bears after taking Falk originally. Couple different ways to go here. Obviously, with the retirement of Drew Dahlman, I'm going to go ahead and they pretty much have their pick of the litter when it comes to center. So I'm not sure how their board ends up looking here. And even though he's coming off a good year and all that, Caleb Williams is still, priority number 1, 2, and 3 probably in reality for them going forward. So center would seem to make a lot of sense. How they stack them, you got Zune, Logan Jones, Hecht, Slaughter. I mean, they're all there. I'll go ahead at center, and I will take I'll take Logan Jones to keep him in the Midwest. I think he probably sneaks into the back end of 2 or goes somewhere by the middle of 3. So think of like 50 to 75, I think
Okay.
is kind of where he's talking. So here, I'll pull the trigger if I'm the Bears here.
Logan Jones to Chicago. Okay, San Francisco. You know what? This could be an interesting Trey Zune spot because Jake Brendel isn't exactly someone to write home about. They took edge rusher and Cassius Howell earlier. Receiver, yeah, corner wide receiver red, corner wide receiver red. Yeah. If they didn't trade for Osa Digizua, this would be such an easy pick for me right now. Like it would just be Grayson Halton and we're moving on, right? But let's increase that interior offensive line because even if Trey Zune, even if they don't forecast him to play center, he could still probably start at left guard over Connor Colby. So either way, that's a really clever pick. You just let him battle it out and see where he lands because he's not a tackle at the next level. He's going to move inside. Houston.
This is where the interior line run is. Let's see. So picking now with Houston again. We've said it before. Team with not much needs. They've added to their war chest on the defensive line.
Yep, two defensive linemen taken already.
Yeah. So you kind of go through it. I mean, they got David Montgomery and Woody Marks. They've got, last year's Iowa State pair with Nico Collins. We'll see if Tank Dell's healthy. So they got weapons. I mean, the offensive line has long been a point of contention. I know they got in Wyatt Teller, Ed Ingram's back. They re-signed him. Braden Smith was brought over. Trent Brown's still there. So they got some like a mixture of older guys, and they're waiting to see what they have long term with guys like Ursary. Center is a spot where I feel like they could do a lot better. So we're starting the center run here. It's
Yeah,
starting at the end of round 2. So I'm going to go ahead and continue it, make it 3 for 3 in the last 3 picks. I'll go with Sam Hecht
Sam Hecht, nice.
as the run continues.
Sam Hecht. Yeah, they're probably pissed Zune's gone because that just let him stay in Texas, and he probably would have been a really good center for them with how they play football. But Sam Hecht is off the board. Now I'm picking for the Bears and let's see here. I know Bears fans, I know you need a safety. I get it. And I love Jalen Kilgore. I do, but I think he's more of a versatile hybrid type of guy, like safety nickel, dime type of player. I get it. But think of how much fun you'll have with Caleb tossing it deep to Chris Brazel, right? Put Chris Brazel in the Z, keep Rome in the X, and let Luther do all the underneath stuff. And that's a really good scheme fit for that third weapon. You guys lost DJ Moore. Chris Brazel comes in. That's your new speed deep threat.
Like, yeah, we've talked about during the season. I mean, I'm not a big fan of receivers that come from that system personally, historically. Think of like, Jalen Hyatt, came from Tennessee, same school, but he might be the one to kind of break the curse. I liked him. He popped all season.
TJ Parker still on the board almost in round 3.
I know. I think when it all comes said and done, I think he's probably going to go higher than this, but there are going to be players that fall on Friday night that you're like, how the hell is this guy still here at 60? It's going to happen. It happens every year. So he might be one of those guys when it comes down to it. There are so many edge rushers. And who knows? Like you had, Houston taking Dennis Sutton earlier. Maybe they take Parker and Real. Who knows? But they're all kind of in the same mix. But with the Rams here, the Rams, they went offense the first time, took Lemon. They could take another offensive lineman. And I kind of think of it, with the way that they've built a lot of their guys. I go back to like what Aaron Donald told them when they kind of reshaped the roster and said, look, we're going to get a lot of young guys. We're going to play a lot of young guys. And Aaron Donald told Les Snead, I don't care who you bring in here. They just got to care, right? They just got to be football guys. And you look at their last few drafts over the last 4 or 5 years or so, they've drafted a lot of dudes that are just high care quality guys. They could be older. They could be from bigger schools, smaller schools. Doesn't matter. They just got to care and they got to love football. I don't know if he's a right tackle. I don't know if he's a guard at the NFL level, but guy that I think fits perfectly to a T and fits their DNA is Jennings Dunker. Just feels very much up their alley for what they're looking for.
Yeah, he could compete with McClendon for right tackle off the bat. McClendon played a lot better than people think. Like he's not a household name, but like Rams fans, like McClendon played quite well. So, but that's not always guaranteed to continue. So if he struggles, you have a guy right there to bake in Jennings Dunker. If he doesn't win, you have 2 guards on expiring contracts. So now you're hedging your bet in there. He could even win a job over Steve Avila off the bat, even though they're not a bad player. So Jennings Dunker to LA. Now we get to Denver, and this is their first pick. And I'm going to go with Grayson Halton here as an interior rusher. They've gone to the Oklahoma well. It's paid off hugely for them. So let's go back and let him rotate with Malcolm Roach in that interior.
Yeah, this feels like about his spot too, like late 2 into early 3. Just a good player who I think if he hits and becomes the best version of himself, he's Kobe Turner. If he's like kind of like what I think like the baseline of what he is, he's probably like in the Sheldon Rankins territory, which is a good player.
Yeah, now
Good
we're
pick.
up to New England, and this could be where the Parker slide stops. Might not be. We don't know.
Yeah,
That's up to Kevin.
yeah. I go through it. I mean, safety's a spot. Kevin Byard's there, a little bit older. Craig Woodson, but you can never have enough edge rushers. And even though they have guys like Harold Landry, Draymond Jones now there, this I think is one of those things. Rodriguez kind of fell in their lap the first go around, first round. TJ Parker falls in their lap this go around. It's
Yeah.
worst comes to worst. He's an edge rusher that's in your rotation year 1, year 2. Maybe he grows into more, probably will, but it seems like a pretty easy pick to make once you get down to the late second.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Cool. Now we're on to the last pick. So I feel a little nervous right now because I get to close us off here. But with the Seattle Seahawks, we already selected a safety in McNeil Warren. So even though I think Jalen Kilgore fits that Seahawks system so well, because you could put him in nickel and now you have Eminem Wari playing full-time safety with Emmanuel McNeil Warren. That's an option, but Zion Young's an option for me
Yeah,
right here.
another guy surprisingly still there.
Yep. But we avoided running back that first time. And Kev, the for me, the running back gap is so big after this next guy that they might have to take him here, even though he's probably a third round player. So, they got Charbonnet as the power guy, and then you put Mike Washington with that speed. That could be a really good second running back for him. So I'm going Mike Washington.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Feels like a pretty, no-brainer type of pick here. Just a guy who's gonna come in day 1, be a big part of your rotation, if not starting from day 1 with Charbonnet coming off injury. Easy pick for sure.
Awesome. Well, that's 2 rounds down, 2 rounds with thorough analysis, thought, looking at depth charts, the whole shebang. So we hope you guys enjoyed this as you're getting ready for the draft. This is taping on a Sunday. Hopefully nothing crazy happens before we post this Monday morning for the final mock draft Monday of the year before the real thing starts. Looking forward, we look out for the full 7 rounder. We're going to do it team by team. We got team by team graphics. So that's going to be really fun to look at. We'll put that on the website. We'll put that on our socials. So make sure that you're following us for that. And other than that, that's all we have until after the draft. We're going to do one more show with Kev. We're going to do one more show with a draft review for now after all the dust settles. But we hope that you guys have enjoyed the coverage and the content so far, and have a awesome draft week. It is here.